Hello, this is part two of our series for scale. So, scale is a relationship of the human body with a composition. So, what we discuss over proportion is the different theories on proportion from your golden section, which is applied from it has an ancient period in time, down to the anthropometry, which is more closely knit to the human scale. So, with scale, a relationship of the human body with the composition, like the height of doors, walls, and etc. So, this is very widely used with regards to architecture, interior, and even through landscape design. So, when we think about landscape, we have to think about how it relates to the space. If you're going for an urban planning setting, how humans will perceive the scale. If we move to a more civic landscape design, how would people would actually experience the space with regards to whole in architecture, how we enclose the space, or how we want to, let's say, provide an experience. And with regards to interior, so it's basically it's very close knit to interior since we deal more with a human psychology and a human scale with regards to function and design. Okay, so while proportions pertains to an ordered set of mathematical relationships among the dimensions of space, so scale refers to how we perceive or judge the size of something in relation to something else. So in our case, how we perceive the relation of architecture or our homes with regards to human scale. So um, okay, so an entity, an object or space being compared to or maybe accepted until a standard unit of measurement. So this is more or less data driven and statistics driven to actually serve um, a mass or a huge population. So, for example, we can say that a table is according to US customary 3 feet wide, 6 feet long, and 20 inches high. So this is using the international metric system, as this is explained here. So the same table would measure 914 mm wide, 82.9 mm long, and 737 mm high. So this is in relation to the U.S. customs and to the metric system. So in drawings, we use scale to specify the ratio that determines between a relationship between an illustration and what it really represents in actual. So, in architecture, interior design, and even landscape drawing, we draw in scales to determine or to have a representation of what it is actually. What it is perceived in an actual scale. So maybe you'll be drawing rooms that is 1 is to 100 in scale, and how it actually translates into human form, which is 1 is to 1. So that's the actual human form na scaling. So some examples, so doorways and windows may be scaled to the dimension of the space, while sill heights and wainscot retain a human scale. So in this photo, as you can see, the doorway is actually expressed as to be scaled with regards to the space. So if I design a space that the door is up to here, so it actually takes away from the scale and the proportion of the space. Given that I have higher walls, I should in scale have provide a larger opening. So that is your solution for the first one. So you have to scale up some to create this composition or proportioning of the space. So for example, on your right, so you have this scale. So you create a proportion that is so what's designed here is the fireplace. So you create a pro- you create a proportion or a composition that is related or closely related to retain the human scale. So it's this one since the fireplace is up to human scale or for human usage. That's why you have to adjust it to create that balance. Okay. So you have their scales, you have different scales. So with architecture, you create scales to envelop a feeling of, let's say, a massive, or let's say to feel that as humans, we are just a small part of a um, whole object of existence. So for this one, this is a play on your human scale in relation to your architecture. So this is for Björk Ingels, and then you have your Isaac Mosk. So the scale of human to a space. So, especially this is very notable in spaces for worship, when you want the feeling of spirituality or the grandness of the religion. That's why they create large churches, large praises, areas for worship, is to create that feeling and to evoke that emotion. Okay, so you have your visual space. So you have your mechanical scale and your visual scale. So mechanical scale is the size or proportion of something, relative to accept the standards of measurements. And then your visual scale, is the size or proportion of the element that has to be relative to other elements. So with this one, you have to consider, the proportion of the acceptable standard, and then you have this, the visual scale, the proportion it appears to have, in relation to the other elements. So this would be your mechanical scale. So this is your human scale. So something that is acceptable to humans, and then, or acceptable to, let's say, the standard that is set for the measurements, or your anthropometric standard. And then some, visual scale, so the proportion of elements to have in relationship with the other. So if I draw a smaller circle here, it doesn't really create that feeling of, I just small that. So it doesn't have the visual appeal to that of the previous design. Okay, so you have your human scale. So if the room is three dimensions, so it height has a greater effect on its scale, to which the width or the length. So with walls, so this is very prevalent in interiors. The rooms provide enclosure. So the ceiling of the plane overhead determines the qualities of shelter and intimacy. So this is, how to be guided when it comes to scaling into the, to the human scale. So for this one, it's basically having, that space. So you have, today these are plain walls. So as you can see, it looks more wider and brighter. So this one, it's more elongate. This is more. It feels like it's elongated, and this one as well. And so when you adjust the height, so there is a feel, that experience that is more airy, or more, let's say, more airy and more higher. So it's something, to play around. This is very prevalent in architecture as well. When you create a darker ceiling, it actually feels like it's, coming at you, or closing down, or coming down, or heavy weighted. So also in, this is very prevalent in interiors. So you have, the texture or darker flooring. So you have both, the ceiling and the floor is very, let's say, fit or textured, or very dark in scale. So it would actually bring the room smaller. So this one you have higher, it feels like it's higher. This one is just enclosing on you. All right. This one, is weighted on all sides. So you have this, constant tension pulling towards the room. So same with the rest of application. So that's why we have to make, balance with regards to the human scale. So this one, as you can see, the trees are actually creating, a relation, like a direct relationship with the human scale in the seating in the middle. With this one, you have the scale of, the fireplace and this wall in relation to a human scale, and, this one as well. So you have various degrees of the human scale in application to interior. So some examples. So, we have this as a human scale. So as you can see, the form of a room. it's actually dictating the space. So everything should, in proportion, everything is lower or shorter. Okay, even the cabinetry, so how it's planned out. This one as well. So this is a more higher approach, or higher ceiling. So in proportion, okay, so higher ceiling in proportion, even if it has dark ceiling, it would perceived as um, high due to the verticality in scale. So yeah, mas tagas, yeah. Okay, even this one. So this is a visual scale as well. This also is a direct um, visual scale. So you can see the vastness of the space, the height, even the material. So it's not as dark. It match, and then the walls are basically of the same finish. So that's why it is perceived as larger or much more, let's say, airy and lighter. Okay. So this is the scale in human scale. So you have your St. Peter's Basilica, and this is human. So